Everyone to the Tools of the Trade live stream. I'm your host, Captain Cole, and I'm joined by my co-host Trip, better known as Crypto ISO on Crypto Twitter. We got an awesome episode for you guys today, with lots to talk about, lots to get into. But before I get started, would you please do me a favor, smash that like button, make us look good for the YouTube algo. Also want to take a quick second to thank our sponsor, Phemex, one of the only non-KYC derivatives exchanges left in crypto. Click the link in the description below to get up to $6,000 in sign-up bonus. Now, the last thing I'll say before we get started here on Tools of the Trade, we are not financial advisors, and this information is for educational purposes only. Welcome to another episode of Tools of the Trade. Trip, my man, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm in the arena, baby.
Trying new things. Let's go. Had a sick workout, I heard. Behind the charts, taking some trades. Before we get into,
I got a nice morning run in, high interval. And then I played 2 sets of tennis, so
love it.
Feeling energized.
Love it. Before we jump into crypto, macro, I think that's actually a big topic to talk about today, just because DXY was on a run, equities are nuking, right? What's your down and dirty take on what's been happening in the macro landscape and how that's kind of affecting crypto?
Well, there's a lot of cross currents, right? We had like the government. The threat of the government shutdown, I think that scared a lot of people. I mean, obviously rates have been a huge topic of conversation. Oil was a big one, right? And everyone thought it was going to go to 100 and it kind of topped at 95. It looks like it's going to trade back down to low 80s. Interesting as it trades down where equities have kind of followed in that suit, because like I think the move in oil brought back some inflation fears, but don't necessarily make sense. Sure, on the surface, it may seem that way. So, just looking at the S&P and the NASDAQ, like the S&P is pretty close to its 200-day moving average, right? Where the NASDAQ's like considerably further away. Is that just because relative strength has kind of been in tech and obviously the AI trade? Potentially. But I do think that this 4220 area, like 4210, is going to be an interesting area to see if it finds support, right? NASDAQ, you could easily take out these lows and then come into this zone here, and maybe that's like equivalent to your 200-day over here. As it stands in relation to the dollar, which we can look at, let me just share this tab instead. So, I mean, it's been no surprise this thing has been rallying up quickly. We've now hit 107, which is kind of this 50% Fibonacci. And so we'll just turn off the TD to make it a little clearer for you guys. Sorry. So, we had like a big squeeze here, and now we're kind of forming this, I don't know if it's like a spinning top or, shooting star type candle here. Could this 107 level provide to be some resistance near term, right? We took out this kind of high right here with this move up. So as it stands, like given kind of what crypto looks like to me and what equities look like to me right now, if you get a little bit of a pullback on this, you'll probably see some relief in risk assets. At least that's what I think, right? So the interesting thing about crypto and ES and NQ to me is that they all flashed weekly buy signals, ETH versus NQ, ETH versus ES, ETH versus, and then BTC versus ES, and BTC versus NQ. Didn't have a weekly buy, but still, like the charts themselves feel like they are still potentially setting up for either early Q4 run or an outperformance on an asset class that has lagged a lot, which has some interesting tailwinds to me on the ETF front. Sure, we just saw the ETH thing come out. ETH BTC went crazy. ETH over the weekend went to 1755. I was hoping that you'd get like a pullback before you ran that high. ETH BTC nuke, right? But I guess the most interesting thing right now for me is how BTC is acting, where it looks like it's almost a leader, which, as we know, in times, in the past, like that's a strong indication for the market, especially when alt pairs and those things are getting smashed against it. So, what's going on behind the scenes with BTC? I'm not entirely sure, but it does seem like this actually has more legs to go up. And I think like everyone's really comfortable in 28.3, 28.4 shorts. And we just ran Monday's low. Like, does that have the potential to run Monday's high? And actually, I think could even go to like 30K, which I had put in the Telegram around like underside retest of the whole trend breakdown, right? Um,
Yep.
we can kind of get into that a little more. But yeah, as it stands, like dollar looks like it could pull back, which could give some strength to maybe a little bit of rebound in risk assets. And then I continue to think that crypto actually has the ability to outperform some of those other ones. So that's my quick take. Wednesday we have, I believe it's the OPEC meeting, so that's tomorrow. We're going to get a little more color on like what the supply crisis is that people have kind of attributed to this big move up in oil. So that could be an interesting catalyst as well, right?
So on the topic of DXY real quick, yeah, you're talking about, potential pullback, whatever the case is. Just looking at Ichimoku from the daily on DXY, steady uptrend, we broke the downtrend from there. I think we were talking about coming back down to the Tenkan possibly. This was last week, right? Yeah, it was like right here, Tuesday. So, we had to move up and then we had to move down, and then, it didn't touch a Tenkan exactly, but pretty much just slightly front ran it. Then we had this up thrust, right? And going into today. So does the DXY pull back? Based on Ichimoku, I think it's a valid thesis to have. And the reason being is when I throw in the weekly, look what we just tapped, the weekly mean reversion level, the Kijun at 107.16. So for me, this is as good a place as any after, what is this, 3 months of up only on the DXY on the weekly chart. So to come up to this weekly mean reversion, which is, again, the 50% Fibonacci move of, the entire trend. So this to me is mean reversion on the DXY, and to assume a pullback after this weekly closes would make a lot of sense for me. And then, relating it back to crypto, we'll jump into in a second. How does, risk on assets like BTC and equities, et cetera, trade? It would make a lot of sense if the DXY does put in some sort of local top here and does pull back maybe like the 104, 105 level for this retest. During that time period, BTC and other risk on assets should do well. Now, I'm going to switch to Bitcoin real quick just to talk about this edge-to-edge trade that people kept asking about, right? So I go over it a lot. Edge-to-edge is the earliest indication of a potential macro high time frame bottom. It's essentially when price comes into the cloud and the target is the opposite edge of the cloud, which is right now at 41 point, let's call it 42K. Prerequisites being you need a TK crossover, blue line or the L line, which we have. You need price closing in the cloud, which we've arguably had that. I think last year we talked about, coming down into that 26K liquidity pocket, which we really did. We had a nice move up last week into that, and now we're still in the cloud. It looks like we temporarily rejected 28.2 on the Tenkan, but we did sweep this week's high from the other day. From a couple weeks ago. But the only issue I have here with this edge-to-edge setup, why I'm not Omega bullish just yet, and just purely from a weekly edge-to-edge standpoint, is because we talked about this Chiku span, right? Like it was right here last week, and now it opened up inside price, right? So the issue is the Chiku span is basically current price plotted back 30 periods, which is 13th of March, and you'll notice price is inside, Chiku span, is inside price where it was 30 periods ago. So with that, the issue is that you want to have the Chiku span above the price, which indicates that price is actually trending. When the Chiku span is inside the price, it means price is technically ranging. So we don't have a trending move just yet. But like we said, when price was back here at 26.1, that price would have to go higher above here to really get above price. So the fact that we opened up in here is cause for concern to not be too bullish just yet. But like you said, we can get granular in just a minute, talking about the Monday low sweep, potentially going up to the Monday high and beyond, 30K retest. Just from a weekly level, this little support block before we kind of broke down, what is this, 28.8 to basically 30K. You're talking about that 30K underside retest. It would not surprise me if this week, whether or not this was the low of the week, the Monday low sweep, early in the week and we come up into this 30K level, that to me is valid for the edge to edge to continue. So what I'd like to see happen is like that trade setup you mentioned, the tools of trade Telegram, is for price to, at least retest the Monday high, potentially, sweep the Monday high and get above it. At that point, this Chiku span, which is right now inside of price, should be above at 28, 29K, 30K. And at that point, we have a trending move where we can potentially see 42K. We're still, relatively long ways away from it. And the reason I say that is because, I still hold valid that, this weekly Kijun level at 23.6K still has yet to be touched. So, before we get to 42K, I really do see this 23.6K level getting tapped at some point before we actually do the completed edge to edge. But can you do something like, underside retest at 30, come back down, and then attack the cloud, this flat area of the cloud right here before doing this? Absolutely. So that's kind of what I'm thinking on the BTC front from the higher time frames. Now, if we zoom in, you'll see also on the 3-day, we had a bearish TK crossover and price, seemingly rejected at this 28.3K level, which is obviously as well, that's the 3-day Kijun, but it's also the weekly Tenkan. So, until we get above that Monday high, that trade you're in right now, Trip, I'm going to be cautiously bullish, assuming that the quarterly open has not yet been ran. So the quarterly open, I believe, has no lower wick. I think Nick was telling me that earlier today. Yeah, so 26.9 or 26.9K, call it. There is no lower wick on this monthly or on this quarterly open. That to me is going to get run before we have a full move to 42K. But as it stands right now, I don't see this as too bearish because, again, we did break market structure, right? We had a downtrend from, what was this, 31.7.
July 14th. We literally broke a downtrend from July 14th. Like,
yep.
That to me is, I mean, people are quick to call it like it could be a deviation of the trend line, but I mean, let's go back and look at what the downtrend was that we broke before on whatever news it was, like when we distributed and then, we had a significant move up, right?
Exactly.
So there are things that I can't ignore. I see both sides of the argument.
And it's the break in market structure, right? And I think that's the most telling thing to me is, right, so you had the high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, made a lower low here. Was this the potential lower high? Maybe. And then you made a some sort of higher low. And then with this move up here, we kind of broke market structure. We broke this lower high. So break in market structure. You can't be full bearish. It could be a deviation, absolutely, but you can't be full bearish just yet, or anymore at least at this juncture, just because with the break in market structure, that's usually the first sign you want to see. So as long as we're holding this 27K level, whether we come back to sweep this, 26.9 level or not, I don't know, but you can't ignore the break in market structure, right? If we get a little granular, and I'm going to kind of talk about your trade, Trip, but you can kind of jump in. We had the Monday high, Monday low, pretty wide range for Monday range that we had, right? So the Monday high is at 28.6, the Monday low was at 27.3. You ran that this morning, and it looks like you reclaimed it. So, maybe you have slight move down, retest the Monday low, and then you go for the weekly open. Depending what happened at this weekly open, that's going to be the first telling sign whether or not the Monday high and that weekly edge-to-edge setup is actually going to validate itself. Interestingly enough, and I do want to pivot real quick to talk about ETH-BTC, and the reason being is because last stream we talked about, or at least my thesis was that if ETH-BTC was going to keep going higher, that would be very bearish for the entire market, because when ETH drags up BTC, that's usually a bearish sign that alt ratios are going up while BTC is weak. But, we came into the mid-range of this move. Again, we're still in this 3-day block that I love to talk about. This has just been a block that I've been holding while I've been selling a lot of my BTC for ETH, just because I'm kind of bullish on that. But, we came up to the mid-range of this current range, rejected, and then we actually went on to make a lower low. So ETH had a squeeze over the weekend, I believe it was, to like 1750s. But the fact that BTC kind of held through and kind of pushed higher and ETH kind of nuked after that squeeze is telling to me that BTC does have some legs here. There's momentum to not be ignored. Because, guys, you have to remember that if the market is healthy, Bitcoin leads the move up. Reason being is because that's where all the money predominantly flows to. Alts kind of get sold for BTC and all the alt ratios go down. But the fact that ETH BTC nuked gives me more confidence that this move up on Bitcoin that we just saw, yes, we set the Monday low. Yes, we're probably going to go retest the weekly open. But ETH BTC nuking gives me some confidence that we're actually going to see continued momentum on Bitcoin. But yeah, go for it, Trip.
Yeah. So can you see my Bitcoin chart here?
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, if we just look at like let's just how long that is, right? So 82 days roughly. Let's call it 80 days. You just broke an 80-day downtrend, and so we moved what percentage out of it? Like that to me is important. If you're just taking the breakout here, I don't know,
6%, 7%
6.5,
almost.
7%. Like if we look at this downtrend, which was 65 days, like did a lot more than 7%, right?
Yeah.
So the element of time to me is a big component to moves, um, like basically that have kind of consolidated or chopped around for a while and attempted
Yep.
to like
Yep.
break out. 1, 2, 3. I mean, you could even call this 4, 5. Here's your rule of fives, like almost right here, right on this break, right? So knowing that, like to me, I think it has more legs, and we can look at the MAs on this to see, and we traded above the 50 on the breakout, right? 26.5. That was always a pretty big level. We went straight into the 200. Now, could this be a rejection? Yeah, totally. Here's the 100. But the interesting thing about this to me is like, if you take this uptrend, right, that we clearly broke out of, was this your retest or is this your retest? Basically, this is how I'm getting to this like 30K high
30K level.
29 level.
Yep.
And I will continue to believe that until like we noticeably lose, let's just say like 26.6, right? And then you've basically deviated the trend line breakout. But we're sitting here at like these highs, and like we came back into 27.2, 27.1. Like I know there was liquidity there. We ran Monday's low. I just think it's actually a really good setup if you're bullish, and that you do have the potential to come to this top band. Like we run these top bands like on big moves, right? Especially off the bottom. I mean, we came down here. Does it mean we need to come down here? Well, guess what? This is your yellow weekly Kijun, basically.
Yep. Yep.
This is the level that we've spoken about ad nauseum on the liquidity heat map on the monthly. That's like, this is it, right? So it's
Do you do 30K first and then go back to that? You hit the top band and then mean reversion all the way back to the bottom band. Maybe that could be in store. This is quote unquote October, based on a lot of data. Looking back the last 10 years on BTC, this tends to be one of the most bullish months for BTC and crypto at large. So to see prices pump the next 11 days would not surprise me. And the reason I put a timer on the 10, 11 days is because we do have, Nick, if you're here, the bearish astrology, full moon and perigee, whatever you want to call it. And at that point, if that's October 14th. So, I was originally thinking we'd bottom on that date, but it would not surprise now that we actually top on that date if we do continue pumping the first, couple of weeks of the month, going to that 30K retest you just mentioned. And then from there, maybe we have a downtrend to that 23.6 mean reversion level that we've been talking about ad nauseum.
Yeah, and if you just start to look at these things against the NASDAQ and the S&P, right? Like low, sweep, reclaim. Like
Yep.
pretty clean to me. I forget if this is the weekly on this TD, because it wasn't against the NASDAQ. I don't think BTC was on a 5, but ETH actually had the 9s against ES
On the weekly.
and NASDAQ, right? So if we go here, we can basically just switch this out. If anyone ever wants to learn how to chart it against like any of the cryptos, you basically put in the command, so you figure out the exchange, the ticker, and then this, and that's going to spit out right there, and there's your 9, right?
Yep. Clear as day.
So we are this fired. You have a green 1, 2, 3. Like, we'll see how much momentum this has, but this is like, I mean, we just draw a diagonal here. To me, this is like something that I don't necessarily want to ignore, because you had a bottom Stoke cross too, and it's fired. Like, these are all the prerequisites for a weekly buy signal to go, right? So we start breaking this downtrend, I'm going to be much more confident in crypto.
Outperformance in crypto versus equities going into year end, right? Before the Santa rally, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. And so if we just look at the 4-hour chart on BTC, right here, like, and we can look at it on ETH. By the way, ETH was a 4-hour 9 buy, too. So
I'll talk about ETH in a second. I have a good chart for that.
yeah, it's just like, if we go back to the basics of, like, here's your DBS zone. Okay, you swept this, price came into it, like, this is where buyers should present themselves. And so we're kind of seeing that in real time. We'll see how much follow through there is, but in reality, it's like, it probably shouldn't go below 27K, like 27.1. Like, that was your sweep. I don't think you want to lose the Monday low again. You may retest it a little bit, but like, that was I think that was like the zone that I was waiting for. I mean, I was long last night, and then I woke up this morning and said, this doesn't look that great because we didn't take the Monday low. There was liquidity,
Yep.
a huge 25x liquidation at 27.1.
27.2 or 21. Yep.
Yeah, right. Here we are, bottom band. You have a TD9 buy signal, and we're working on. Oh no, it actually didn't close a 9 because it moved up so much. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I mean, like, based on this, we're above the Monday low. If you start trading above the daily open, things get really interesting, and momentum probably starts to move to the upside. And we know that there's like 3 billion in liquidations. We can start to look at the licks, or do you want to go over ETH first?
Let's do ETH first on a higher time frame, and we'll kind of get granular with it. So let's just talk about ETH real quick. The reason being is, on the weekly, we've been, tapping at this key June level. Last week, we had a bullish engulfing. We had that squeeze up, but we still closed the weekly pretty solid at 1730. From here, this really looks like almost like a perfect higher low bottom to me on ETH, even though ETH BTC doesn't look that great just yet. But for me, there is hope. And the reason being is you can't ignore this bullish engulfing candle that, retraced or took out the entire week of Monday, the 18th of September, an entire downtrend move. And now it looks like we're kind of retesting it. So on the weekly, this edge-to-edge setup has not validated yet. At 1900, almost 2000, you'll close in the cloud, and then you're targeting 2800. We're a long ways away from that. Don't get me wrong, but the setup is there, and the key June has held as support. Multiple taps. But of course, if you were to come down and sweep these lows at 1560s, maybe things start cascading down towards 1200s. But we're not there yet. So point being is the daily right now just really looks to me like a potential SR flip in the making, right? Like all these highs, the range high, and now it looks like we're trying to turn this into support. So while BTC looks good with that Monday range low sweep and reclaim, I'm actually still kind of bullish on ETH, just because if we're able to hold this level, and ETH BTC may go slower with BTC moving up to that Monday high that you mentioned, Trip. I do kind of remain bullish that we did sweep this. Is that a deviation, bearish engulfing potentially? But until we kind of start violating these lows below 1600, I'm going to stay bullish on ETH as well, because it just makes sense to me. And if we kind of dial it in on, the hourly for ETH BTC, or sorry, ETH USD, we throw on our handy dandy Monday low. No, we haven't swept that yet, but even though BTC did. So the fact that ETH kind of held that Monday low for a higher low, could you come still down here, sweep this, and then do that? Maybe that happens with BTC retesting the Monday low. Maybe it does not. But the Monday high and the weekly open are so close together that I don't see us not retesting this 1700 or higher level going into the end of this week. So short term, or at least for the rest of the week, I do maintain a bullish bias as long as that 1600 level and 27,000 level we mentioned kind of holds for that. But yeah, let's get granular, Trip. Let's jump into the licks.
Yeah, so to ETH, right? Like we can just look at like here's your 9 on the moving average, and I've fallen victim to waiting for ETH to sweep a Monday low while BTC did, and then being like, oh, well, I don't want to buy it, and then you're left in the dust, right? Like it doesn't happen perfectly on each one. As we've seen, ETH BTC outperforming and then nuking. So yeah, like this is a buy signal. You have a bottom stope turning up. Like I just don't
As a
want
four,
to short anything like after a huge move down like this, where you're getting probably consolidation. The liquidity on ETH is red delta. We can look at that. But if we want to just look at like the daily chart on this, because it's very similar to Bitcoin in my opinion, is yeah, here we go. Let me turn off these TDs, which is crazy. That was going to be a 9, but it ended in 8. Hold on a second. It gets a little crazy. So again, we can turn on the bands. These are from a guy named Only Patterns, by the way, on Twitter. I've known him a long time. They help me. I find them to be good points of confluence. Like we'll turn off all the ranges so you guys can see. But here would be like a similar instance of where we go to the top band and we retest basically 1900, right? Here's your resistance up here. This is your uptrend that broke. And like this is where everyone gets bullish. And this is probably where price rejects if this holds and we move up, right?
And unironically, that's like the bottom of the weekly cloud. So you'd have to break above and close inside in order for that edge-to-edge setup to kind of materialize. So that is probably where people get bullish, and that is probably where you get some sort of pullback if you were to get one. If ETH doesn't, pull a fast one and somehow go to range high.
Yeah, and keeping in the back of the mind that ETH versus NASDAQ and ES both had weekly buy 9s. So those are strong signals where BTC only had 1. Who knows if that means anything, but something that I have taken into account. Probably why I was bullish ETH like early on, thinking that you would get a pullback over the weekend, but we didn't. So that's trading. But we can now look at like the actual like near term liquidity on BTC. So it's not crazy, 319 to 236, but you are
Delta's
building
red.
a delta down here with 3.3 billion in shorts. I mean, this was 5.4 billion before you got like a washout. So like, but look, like, where is your origin of the move, right? Like, this is it, right? So price coming back into this zone is where you would expect buyers to step in. Would this take people for a ride? Like, if this is the low and this just took all this liquidity up here, ran all these guys who shorted this, yeah, probably. And that would get you close to that underside retest. I don't know how long it's going to take. I mean, obviously 28.2 is a huge level. Maybe with some patience, you're going to get there. To your point, watching the weekly open, that reaction. But like, if I just look at this right here, like there's a gap down to basically 27.1, right? That's your Monday low area that like we kind of ran and reclaimed. Like price is closer to liquidity right now on the top side, in my opinion, with a red delta.
Yep, absolutely.
So we can look at a heat map and see like what the 12-hour, 7-day, 1 month look like, which have been kind of like my guide here for a lot of this stuff. So here we basically came in. Now we didn't grab this, right? Like we didn't grab.
Yeah, that's my issue, because it's literally the quarterly open. It has no lower wick. So like I know you're in that trade, but personally, if I were going to take a scalp long on BTC, it would be after we sweep that, because I think personally ETH actually looks more attractive, and I'll show the licks in a second. But yeah, continue.
It does, but like here's your liquidity on BTC up to 28 right here.
Yep.
And we're pretty close to it.
Yeah.
The gap below here is like, then you're going to 27.1 again, I guess. it just seems like price is closer. We have a red delta, so we'll see. We can look at the 7-day. I don't disagree with you on ETH, by the way. It's a dance between these two, right? ETH
Always.
ripped BTC, and then it's like, does it go back to ETH? Does it go back to BTC? Like um, it's kind of a tough one to figure out. I mean, it definitely got sold really hard when volumes weren't that great on some of
On
these.
the ETF, ETH
Yeah,
futures too, coming out right on the hedge of, or the back of that news.
right. And that was like same as what we saw with Backed when it came out, right? So
Yep.
the 7-day, I mean, this is going to get you all of that liquidity up there. Like, do we come down and sweep this? I don't. Has this updated? No, I guess. Yeah. I mean, yeah. In theory, you could go down very quickly, right? I'd be more inclined to think that this was the case if the delta was green. It's not. And then we look at the monthly and just see like what did we tap, and how does that look? We're kind of like smack in between pockets, right? This is
Yep.
you run 26, and then
I
this.
feel like if you're on 26, so you start going very deep into everything
You're not,
else. I
yeah.
know
If you're,
everyone was waiting for that gap at like 25.8 or whatever, but I don't know. It doesn't seem that likely. If you're going to go back down there, you're probably going much lower from there.
right. So this is how you get the underside retest up here. I mean, you're kind of making a call on what you think crypto is going to do relative to the market, which we kind of talked about on a monthly level, right? Like, it's not super clear, but we did hit like some big ones up here after coming into these. So I think we're gonna squeeze higher. We'll see, but we can look at ETH too. Do you want to look at ETH liquidity?
Yep. So ETH liquidity is kind of interesting to me, and it's for the reason I'm more bullish is just looking at this chart. The first thing that glares me in the face is this liquidity bubble at 1707, 165 mil in short liquidity. We do have a red delta, albeit less than BTC, negative 2.1 bill. But near term, yes, it seems like we took out a lot. Near term, the liquidations are to the upside because we took out a lot right here. There's a little gap here. But the one thing I will say is 1624 has about 82 mil and 50x long licks, and that's why I'm still not opposed to ETH sweeping the Monday low. I think the Monday low is 1637. So to sweep that, tap this liquidity at 1625 before going for the 1700s makes sense. But then again, like you said, I wouldn't be surprised to see things just rip up. At which point, the 1706 liquidity is very attractive. So whether I'm getting long here at 1650 or potentially lower at 1625. I do expect the 1700 level to get tapped in relatively short fashion this week. And if you'll notice, there's a lot of liquidity that goes up to 1800, 1830 even potentially. So
I mean, look at the 100. Look at that 100x at like 1760 or something.
Right here. Or no,
Giant orange.
Oh, right here. Yeah. Well, no, that was the long licks that got swept.
Okay, I was gonna say, I was like, what? All right, so then
Yeah.
the biggest one is the
Is the 1700. Then you have a bunch of stacked at like 1780 that takes you up to 1800 essentially. So, but if we pivot now and we look at the 7-day liquidation heat map, this is why I do see the case for the Monday low sweep is because yes, you came into some liquidity here, but you didn't necessarily sweep this liquidity here at 1615. All the way down to 1600. So I do expect that, again, why 1600 needs to hold for me for prices to go higher. But from near term, it does seem that the liquidity kind of matches up to go to 1700 first.
Is that 7-day? What's the
That's a
12
7-day. Yeah, let's get a little more granular here. So interestingly enough, where's this? It looks like we have liquidity is closer higher, again 1660s all the way up to 1680 before you gap up to 1700s, and there's that liquidity at 1630, which is again that Monday low sweep. But like you said, we are closer to top side liquidity than bottom side liquidity, so it makes sense for things to go higher. If you get the Monday low sweep, that's probably where I would gig along ETH for scalp long back up to 1700s, maybe even 18. But other than that, I do think in the near term, higher before lower makes a lot of sense. And we can also zoom out real quick, look at the monthly. We did tap a lot of liquidity.
A monthly one. Yeah, we hit it hard.
Yeah, we hit it hard. There's still some at 1800. We didn't quite tap above there. But again, we had a short squeeze last weekend. came back down, swept some of that liquidity from the short squeeze, even went below that price. And now it seems that the liquidity is more attractive higher than it is lower. Again, if we start breaking down at 1600 level, we'll notice that the most brightest yellow part on the monthly is at 1300 level. We mentioned on the weekly that if you start losing those lows at 1600, you're probably going down lower. But that's kind of the down and dirty on ETH and BTC on the heat map. So that's kind of what I'm thinking, at least in the short term. But from the trade setup perspective, whether if I'm going to be patient, which I am going to be, if you get this Monday low sweep into 1625 reclaim, this area is where I'd be targeting for a scalp long. So I potentially even look to bid 1625s, maybe with the stop low somewhere below 1600. And then, I'd probably add on the Monday low reclaim, and then I'm targeting, the weekly open at first, just because there's that liquidity at 1700 that seemed attractive. And whether or not you're going to do an underside retest of this little support SSR zone, I don't know, but it makes a lot of sense to me, at least in the short term.
Yeah. So we're kind of on the same page. It's just a matter of
fine-tuning the entry and seeing what we're going to get
later. ETH on the TD9.4 with a bottom stoke, not a bad. Like, you could make an attempt with a pretty tight invalidation here.
Yes, no, you could, and that's why you either take the paper cut, long from lower, or if you're thinking, ETH BTC is kind of going to go higher from here. And if we get granular on ETH BTC real quick, let's turn off the levels. We are below this range low at 0.06, call it. But are we once again deviating below? I don't know. But the sooner we get above this 0.0605 level, call it, that's when I get bullish ETH. So as soon as I see something like this, right away here is where I kind of want to scalp long ETH, whether or not the Monday low is swept or not. I think there's going to be upside momentum to that respect, at least the mid range again, and then the range high is all the way up to 16 or 0.064, I believe. Yeah, so that's kind of what I'm thinking in the near term. I think we're both pretty locally bullish. I know equities have been kind of nuking, and that is a big cause for concern for a lot of people. But like you mentioned, if the DXY pulls back, it would make a lot of sense that risk on assets, BTC, crypto, ETH, etc., all kind of go with it.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. But all right, so do we do altcoins? I mean, they're not even that great to look at right now.
Yeah, let's take a peek at this coin screener. While I'm doing that, guys, feel free to drop any alt requests in the chat. And we will kind of just look at things. But, I talked about the coin screener. This has been really helpful for me to kind of look at what assets trade for the day. So we talked about being, intra-week bullish. In that case, if I'm going to be scalping alts, I want to look at alts that are, let's say, between 0 and 30% long, which indicates that most of retail is net short on the Binance global account scale. So just looking at that here, I don't see anything. Wow. It looks like everything is pretty long or even. So let's just reset this real quick. Run that. So let's see what we have here. First glance, you're looking at things that are green. Okay, so Maker. So 35% of accounts are net long on Binance on Maker. 32% are net long on storage. 35% are net long on TRB. So those would be my first 3 picks to look at from a chart perspective. Again, I'm just looking at the coin screener. I don't know what the chart looks like. I don't know what the liquidations look like. But that are the 3 assets I'd be looking to potentially scalp long to catch some beta if I think BTC is going to go up for the Monday high. Conversely, just looked at the coin screener. SHIB is 80% long. DOT is 84% long. Doge is 80% long. ID is 82% long. NEAR, and that's kind of all I'm seeing there. So those would be other tickers I'm looking at in terms of that. Take a peek at ETF. Okay, I'll do a quick ETF thing, and then we can kind of look at some other coins. Solana, if you want to get that chart ready, Trip. Link. ETF. This has been fun to trade. This is just a fun chart. For those who don't know, this is a meme coin. People are betting on the potential outcome of the BTC spot ETF decision. I know they're adding ETH futures ETF. I posted this in the chart. This looks like it's just one big range from 16.80 cents down to 0.09 cents. It looks like we swept a low here. I think the low here was 0898, and this was 0897. So we swept the low by literally a 100th of a penny. It makes a lot of sense to me that this is a range. This is a meme coin. TA typically, for whatever reason, seems to work on shit like this when it's so new and fresh. So to see things push up above mid, retest mid, go to range high, maybe come down, maybe do a breakout, who knows. That's kind of what I'm thinking on the ETF front. This does kind of look like an interesting price, to be fair. So maybe, let's see here. Share this tab. Let's do, yeah, why not? I think the last time I added on stream was what, 6 cents? Now we're twice that price, 6.5 cents. Let's do a little buy, my friends.
Huh. You're buying more on stream? As long as
why not, dude?
Above water, which by the way, price came back to my entry.
Yeah, that's just how it goes, right? Like shit like this, guys. Like I don't know. This is money. I'm happy to. I'm not like I can afford to lose. It's 3 ETH. I think I've put a total of like 6 ETH now with that position in. This is just what happens with meme coins. They go up, they go down. They're super volatile. Oh, I got 36K ETF. Cool. Almost 37. That's usually my favorite number. But yeah, a little 3 ETH buy for you guys. But I think we'll leave it at that. We can check the chart a little later. Trip, you want to go over Solana?
Yeah. So, this is the Sol chart, the daily, right here.
Yep.
I mean, let's look at a weekly chart of this thing. This has been an outperformer, as it seems. Okay. All right. So, you're basically you're in like a range here, right? On this guy.
Essentially on the weekly, yeah.
I'd actually be curious to hear your cloud
Ichimoku take. Yeah. Is that the Kijun at what? Is it just tap that?
Yeah, but you're so the Tenkan is like, let me get rid of some of these lines. Is they're basically converging. Like this is the Tenkan and the Kijun, right?
Yep.
So does that mean anything?
So you need the cross. First of all, we are very far away from the cloud, unfortunately. So while you might have the cross soonish, I don't see a potential edge to edge to 133 happening until probably Q1 or Q2 of late next year.
Here's the interesting thing about this chart. You had this low, you swept it, right? And now you traded up, and now like, is this your higher low on Sol?
Yep.
Off of this, right? Like, I mean, this isn't great, but it's not like horrible. Like, I'd be curious to see what the Fibonacci retracement was on that move. Like, did you come into a pocket, right? Like,
Probably the 50%.
Like, did you come into the 61.8?
Oh, you got him backwards.
No. This.
Oh, like, from that to that. Yeah.
This to this. Like, this is a long time, but you came into like a pretty key zone here, like 70.5.
70.5.
Right. Yeah. This weekly candle is pretty interesting, right? Maybe you do, I mean, I think you have to hold like basically this high. Like this call it SR flip right here. So this is 22, right? Can you like doji here and maybe mess around? If you're holding this and the market is actually moving up, then I don't know, Sol actually can be an interesting long. Not like it doesn't excite me right here, especially because of the daily. just in terms of like what this looks like relative to this trend line that's like kind of been the deciding factor where prices like traded basically like into it, above it, deviated below it. Like it's almost probably becoming less relevant as that stands. But like, what is this here? 2174. So it's kind of almost like the 22 level, like that we just talked about on like the weekly, right?
Yep.
So, that's my take on the chart. We can look at the liquidity because I haven't looked at Sol.
Here, I got the liquidity handy
But
here.
it's pretty heavy longs.
It is. If you want to look at the heat map, the liquidation chart itself, it is heavy longs. It's about one
Oh yeah.
point. It's actually 600 mil in cumulative long delta. So short term, it does seem that the path of least resistance is probably down. 22, 22.6, 22.8. These are the kind of short-term levels I'd be targeting. I don't necessarily think that this is going to appreciate or outperform BTC just based on the lick map. There's 651 longs to 200 shorts, so it's skewed 3-1 to the downside. So I'd almost be looking to fade Solana if I thought that BTC was going to retest the Monday low potentially. Yes, there's some cluster of shorts or short liquidations around 24.9, 25, 25.3, but it seems to me that at least in the near term, lower before higher makes sense on Sol. To sweep this low here at 22.9, take some of these licks, and then maybe go for the licks higher up. But that's at least a short term. What's like the heat map looking like, Trip?
Yeah, so I mean, if we take a look at the 3-month, right? Like you do have liquidity up to 28, call it that.
Yep.
Right? This is high time frame stuff. So I actually am curious to look at the 6 month, like if there's some around 40. No, not really. I mean, like this move up was pretty crazy. So maybe
I took out a lot. Yeah.
Maybe this is potentially your, I don't know, lower high if this thing moves up, right? Like you're
27,
running,
29.
yeah, you're running into some serious like not like able to squeeze through there. If we look like at the monthly though, it's a totally different picture because here's the bright spots, right? 18,
Yep.
17, like,
Yeah.
I mean, the crazy thing is like you ran these and then you just started.
And then you just kept going. Yeah, you kept gapping up essentially.
So is that an indication of maybe there is a spot bid here where like liquidity squeezing shorts, like people are buying it? Like I don't know, but that's something to definitely keep into effect. And then here, this is your 25. We can look at a 7-day, but like if I'm just looking at the delta right now, like it's not something I want to be long, particularly. But here is near term. So yeah, you're 25. I don't know if you have the liquidation levels open, but maybe that's like you're running this high.
Yeah, so that's where that cluster is that we just talked about, 25.
Right.
I'll show that real quick.
So like potentially shorting a run of 25 and this, right? Here, draw a diagonal here.
A sweep of the Monday high, essentially, right? At that
I would
point,
draw a
there's
diagonal
a
across
cluster.
that. And then maybe you're going to get a spike up into 25.50, close to 26. And then do you go down to 22, which is the area we had talked about on the weekly?
Let me actually draw a diagonal real quick.
Oh, man. Yeah, you got... That's pretty nice. Like, it's pretty close. Sol is pretty close to liquidity below right now.
Yeah, exactly. That kind of why it makes the most sense.
The 12-hour, and then that's going to get you your 25s up here. So maybe it's an underperformer, goes to 23, and then goes up. I haven't really been watching Sol, but that's my like quick and dirty analysis.
These are kind of like equal highs, right? 24.80 and 24.77. If you want to potentially, project that as just an ascending triangle from here to here, potentially, coming down to potentially rip through this low right here, testing the trend line, do something like that. Potentially, but I do prefer, a sweep of these equal highs seems like a better short to kind of hammer down, and then break this trend line potentially.
Yeah, it's an interesting play. I mean, I saw some VC talking about how like payments is coming back into the forefront, and Solana, that narrative being
Yep.
something. I think there was also some news around Maker like potentially using the chain.
The real
Um,
world assets.
yeah, which who knows what the news is, but if people buy into it, then yeah, Matic looks ready to break out.
Do
Have you talked
Link
to
and then
anybody
Matic.
in XO? I'll look at Matic liquidity. Um,
Here, pull up Link first because we got that one first, and then we'll do Matic. So
Link
I'm opening up. Yeah, I'm opening up the Link chart. This has been in a giant, however many day range this is, right? What is this? Almost year and a half, 500-day range. You had the retest. You had the deviation below range low. I think we talked about this last week as well. So I still have it on the chart. You had a deviation below range low. You came back into range low retest, and then you're moving up to range highs, $8. This to me is a block you want to see hold for continuation. So we're kind of testing out at 7.4. Can we potentially go down to 7-ish? Low 7, 6.9, call it. I don't know what the licks look like, but just from a chart perspective on the weekly, if you come down into here, even, where it is right now at 7.4 or potentially 7.3, seems to me from the weekly chart to be a good spot to potentially long, to target these range highs, because there's a lot of untapped highs right here, guys. Where is it? You have this one and this one and this one and this one. So to kind of rip across all of this would not surprise me in the short term, whether that's from here or potentially down at $7. But coming down to this and then doing that. So Link would be an outperformer. I could see if we're talking about BTC potentially doing a 30K underside retest.
Oh
I
wow,
won't be
this
surprised to
thing
see Link do.
315 million in shorts, 36 longs to 316 shorts on Link.
Oh shit! Let's take a peek. Oh
That's
wow, yeah. So yeah, I like that block I just mentioned. I think right here is probably as good a spot as any. I'll get granular on the chart while you dissect those licks.
740. There's a short right here on the bottom, but it's 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you get another move down, but I don't know. You're getting pretty extended on short side, like from an exhaustion standpoint.
Yeah. So when I look at it from the hourly chart, the Monday low, do you have to sweep it at 7.352? No, but could you? Sure. But again, the Monday high and the weekly open are so close together, similar to ETH. This is probably a good scalp long to at least get back to the weekly open, right? So if you think BTC is going to move up from here, I wouldn't be surprised to see something like this. Maybe set your stop below 7.250. What's the closest lick trip on the long side, just so I don't put my stop on liquidation, because that's usually a poor execution.
Let me check. I just switched over to the heat map, but I
Because
mean
this
it's in
trade
the
looks like a decent trade.
720s. It's in the 720s or something.
Okay. So maybe you get a little more 718, 719 just below. It's a 2.5 to 1. This seems like a decent enough trade to me to trade up to at least the weekly open, potentially the Monday high, and sweep it and go higher. Yeah, Link's definitely an interesting long that I think I might actually even take shortly. Good shout, whoever said Link.
Yeah, so your closest lick is going to run the 736 low that just put in, and I mean you could cascade down to like 726, but like
Yeah,
36
those are kind of, yeah,
is like a
very skewed. 10 to 1.
yeah, it's skewed
I
really.
almost like where it is right now, and bet that the Monday low is not going to get swept. So maybe you set your stop below 7.3, and you're targeting the weekly open.
Yeah, so if we're just looking at the 12-hour on Link, 733 to all the I don't know 720 like that's where you're going to get the liquidity. The thing is we just hit 738, but this was a pocket, right? So
Yep.
again, you're making a call on the market. So, but this is going to squeeze hard if it does, and it will go to $8 probably, is my guess. I don't know where that is on the chart, but we can look at a 7-day too. Yeah, so this would get you your 780s, 790.
And then maybe cap up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean this is your big liquidity up here, which you'd basically be running these highs then. But again,
I'm in that camp. Yeah.
up here.
Yeah, just because like from this perspective, like the setup to me for trading just the Monday range, getting long here with literally a stop below 7.3, and targeting the Monday high. But then again, like you said, like these are not very clean highs to me. So can you go above to that E3 level you just mentioned? This becomes a super attractive trade all of a sudden. Not that it wasn't before to the Monday high, but TP maybe half at 8.1 and then the rest above 8.3, and see what happens from there. This seems like a really, really good trade, actually. I really like this a lot.
I think right now with this pullback, and after such a fast move up on both BTC and ETH, a long is going to take a little bit of patience to
Sure.
watch it
Yep.
play out, right?
Yep.
If you look at like, just putting things into perspective of like how long we consolidated before we actually got like the 27-1 like ripped city through here. This is a long time. Like it's not easy to sit through that, right? So like this thing could take a little while to get moving, and then you're going to go to the mid, right? And then it could come down, and it still could make its way to the Monday high. And then it's like, are you going to consolidate up here above the previous quarter mid? Like for us to get to where we're talking about, I don't think is going to be very fast. So we'll see like how it kind of plays out. But I think that's something that like everyone needs to keep in mind, especially myself.
Keep in mind, yeah.
Right? Is just like price like just nuked. So if it's going to make its way back up, like
it's not going to happen like a Dalai Lama. It's going to be a slow grind with some, higher
like,
lows.
Boom, bam, boom, and then it's like like we're
staircase up, elevator down. That's the whole meme.
Yeah, market structure. But okay, if you start grinding up again, then
what's the trend line look like from there from 24.8 connected to those lows or those higher lows you just showed?
Let me turn off some stuff so you can see. This is on Bitcoin.
Yep. Looking at that like TD4 on the left there on the 13th, where your green little square is, and then drawing it up to kind of where we are now, just to see if like we can grind into that moving forward.
This thing up here?
No. So on September 13th, like the green 4, the absolute bottom at 24.8. If you draw a trend line from there.
Oh, this one.
Yeah. Yep. And then draw it with those like higher lows that we kind of grinded up that you were just mentioning.
Yeah. I actually was looking at that the other day, or trying to look at that. Sometimes when I look at I have only the moving averages on, typically for the daily, but yeah, I see what you're talking about now. So let's see if that has. You mean like, is this the new uptrend, essentially?
Yes. Yeah, that's kind of if that was the bottom and you're drawing it from there, do you
this
kind of
grind? This is the accurate trend line here, right? So
yep.
Does it mean you come down here, 26.8? I mean, I if anything, you do something
you
like
go up to the weekly. Yeah, you do the weekly open and then come back down for like a higher low. That holds the Monday low. Yeah. Okay, same page.
Yeah. So I don't know what this like a 12-hour looks like. Curious, actually. The interesting thing to me is the retest of this is where like
the diagonal or to the downtrend diagonal.
August 29th here you broke it. You're retesting it. In my opinion, price should not go below this. Like we should go up from here. That's like also a large part of like the retest part of it after breaking the huge downtrend, right? So we can draw trend lines to make ourselves feel good, but this is pretty clean right now. So we'll see how that plays out. 27.4. All right, cool. What else is in the chat?
Matic. I'll pull up the chart. You want to pull up liquidity?
Yeah.
Matic. SC and XO favorite. Yeah, this doesn't look too bad. You came down, you deviated below this, what was it, June low, at 51 cents. It looks like you made some sort of almost like double bottom pattern on the daily. If I throw on Ichimoku, just take a peek. The Kijun is at 59 cents, almost 60 cents. This would seem like a near-term upside target. If I just zoom out just to see what's up. Okay, you had a weekly, this was like a bottoming candle on the weekly, and then this was a bullish engulfing. Comes up to 69 cents potentially, or the underside of 64 cents. This little block would be the first resistance.
This looks. This is so heavy longs. It's like not even funny.
Is it? Okay, so maybe it's not ready just yet, but if I look at this from the Monday range perspective, Monday low is at 54 cents. You did sweep the weekly open and the Monday high. It does look like the Monday high is capping it for now. You're trying to flip the weekly open. I don't know if that happens. I guess it really is dependent if BTC is going to go lower or not. But just looking at it this way, a long, potentially even a short from here. If you're telling me it's short heavy or long heavy, sorry. If it loses this weekly open, you put your invalidation somewhere above 58 cents, and maybe you're targeting the Monday low sweep to get and then flip long from. That could be a valid option. Then play to the Kijun at 59 cents, call it 59.67. So that's kind of just the down and dirty of how I'm looking at Matic from the chart perspective. You hold, if you break back above Monday high, hold it, it's probably going higher. So that's daily Kijun at 59, almost 60 cents. If you break back below the weekly open, I think there's a pretty clean short down to the Monday low. But what do the licks say? Do we have any 54.30 long licks?
Oh, there's a lot. There's 250 million in longs on Matic.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Have you looked at Matic BTC?
No, I know that's what I used to always look at that. Where is it? Let's see.
Well, echoing what we talked about in terms of BTC leading a move, like these things should get smashed.
Yes, but unfortunately, whatever you want to call it, ETH BTC or Matic BTC looks really good. Just looking at it from the daily perspective, it does seem like it's kind of leading to its own tune. But I think that's more because Matic was so heavily shorted by SC and whoever else, right, that it went down to that 50-cent mark. It does make sense that this is some sort of mean reversion too. The BTC or Matic BTC chart on the daily looks pretty bullish. The Kijun again is at 21.42, which is an outsized move on BTC of about 2 or 3%. So I can see Matic outperforming BTC on the way up. But as long as ETH isn't outperforming BTC on the way up, I still think you're going to have outliers, whether it's Matic, ETF, or something else. It does make a lot of sense. But yeah, that's kind of how I see Matic from the BTC perspective.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Sol as an outlier recently, right?
Yep.
We all know that the money in this space is limited, and it's just a hot ball.
It's still PvP, guys. We say that almost every single stream, that the market, there's no new influx of retail capital into the space. This is, me versus Trip versus Nick versus whoever else is left in the space trading perps or slinging, shitcoins on chain, whatever the case is. No new money's coming in. It's rotating into the next hot narrative. Yeah.
Yeah, so Matic has liquidity up to like 59, basically.
Yeah, that's that daily Kijun.
Which is like, you're going to start getting exhausted. I mean, that's on a 1 month. If you look at a 7-day, be curious to see like near term what some of these things look at. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, I mean, it's all kind of showing you the same thing. I mean, I guess this is really your zone if you wanted to short it, to your point on the 12-hour. Yeah, look how close you are below though, right? So it's like,
yeah, exactly.
You got to really start.
Monday low is at 54 cents. Yeah.
Yeah, and based on like ratio of longs to shorts and 250 million in longs, like just I would say that this is more likely to get hit. So like I would say that Matic probably, just based on deltas and liquidity alone, would trade down, but charts can tell us otherwise. So, what's the coin screener say? Anything?
On Matic, let's see. Let me take a quick peek. Matic. It's kind of even. It's 63% net long. It's not crazy long, so I wouldn't necessarily consider it to be overly long to the point where you should need to revert it. But again, if it came back up to that 60-cent level, 59-cent level you just mentioned, I'm sure the coin screener would show a higher percentage of longs coming in there.
Yeah. So we'll see. Were there other ones?
OP.
I'll look at this, and then it's almost over an hour. I haven't looked at OP in a long time. Here, we'll go to the actual liquidation levels. What is even the price of OP?
$1.30. My short is still printing.
$1.30. All right, let's see what we got. OP. Are these guys super long OP as well? We'll see. If it looks like Matic. No, it doesn't. Looks like the opposite.
It's just starting to get negative though, right? It's like what, negative 70, 80 mil?
Almost 100.
Almost 100. Okay, fair.
287 to 72. I mean, you're coming back down to the origin move here. Like, we'll go a little less granular to see if the bubbles tell us anything different on the larger size. Like, how much is actually left to really grab? Not a lot. I mean, you got a short.
Maybe there's an unlock here. Maybe there's selling from an unlock. That's my gut intuition.
OP?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is
based on
down only. Meaning, like, is spot just nuking this thing?
That's what I think. Because again, I'm still in my short. We talked about this. When was this trade? August 23rd. So almost 2.5 months ago. We talked about this monthly open, this little order block here. We came into it. I didn't catch a trade on the sweep. Unfortunately, I caught it at $1.50 something. This still to me is going lower. And the reason being, I drew this diagonal or this horizontal, I think last stream or 2 streams ago, at $1.40. You know, that this was support, held, and now rejected here resistance. Once again, rejecting at resistance. You know, $1.69 is coming, potentially even sub $1. I do not plan on closing this till at least this higher low wick gets swept. Until that, I just don't see the point in longing this high FDV coin. I'd rather be swing short and collect my funding.
Yeah, I mean, the 12-hour, you're definitely close, which would, you know, to 128, which is going to give you the run before you hit a gap.
Yep.
7-day, like, the chart does remind me of something that's being spot sold. I mean, we saw it with like CHC one time. Like, there's been a number of coins. But yeah, like to your point, $1.24, and then like if you start just ripping through this stuff down here, like you don't have that much above, right? That's on a 7-day OP Binance liquidity chart.
Yep, exactly.
If we look at the monthly, I would imagine that your target has, yeah. I mean, this is 146, just down only. You just come back down to here, and then you eventually.
Yeah. And then you're gonna go back to $1.60, $1.69, or $0.69. Makes a lot of sense to me.
It's pretty interesting that some alts have way different profiles, looking charts, and then like you see these like just down only.
Yep.
With heavy shorts on the deltas. So, was the coin screener saying anything on this one?
On that, let's see, OP. It is 69. Yeah, 69% long. So yeah, it is more skewed long than it is anything else. So yeah, I think that just makes sense for me. No changes to swing shorts positions. This makes the most sense, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
All right. I'm exhausted.
Last thing, someone just asked one more time ETF because the chart didn't show. I guess they didn't see when I was drawing it. So this is the ETF chart. You had these range lows. You swept these range lows. You just came up to mid-range. That's probably because of my buy. Range high makes sense. I mean, you come down, and then you kind of do a breakout. So just bought 3 ETH worth of ETF on stream again. Yeah, this just seems like, again, a narrative play to me. And again, the only reason I talk about this ad nauseum is because I really think we're super early to this chart, to this narrative play. ETH ETF futures was not the buy the news event everyone was hoping for, right? Unfortunately, it kind of reminded us of Backed. All the ETF decisions did get delayed, I believe, until next year. So earliest we're going to see an ETF approval, I believe, is January. So, are we, 1, 2, 3, 2.5 months early to this trade potentially? It's still like a 2, 3 mil, 4 mil market cap project, sure. But at the end of the day, it's a narrative. We talk about PvP, we talk about on-chain markets, seeing things happen as they unfold. It's going to make sense to me, and I'm going to bring this. I'm going to retweet the stream eventually when prices do go higher, because I do believe higher is eventually going to happen. But yeah, ETF is definitely an interesting play that I'm just having fun with, guys. Don't bet more than you can afford to lose. It's on chain, it's PvP. I'm assuming the next narrative is going to be ETF driven. But yeah, we talked about a lot of stuff today. Talked about BTC, talked about ETH, got into the DXY, looked at some alts, Sol, Matic, Link, OP, ETF. Trip, any parting words going into the end of the week? I know we're both, bullish bias, whether it's from here, maybe a sweep of the low, who knows? But I think we're both expecting higher before the end of the week. I know you said there's the OPEC stuff tomorrow morning. Any parting words or suggestions for our wonderful viewers going into the rest of the week?
Not really. I just drank almost 51 fluid ounces of smart water on stream in an hour. So feeling pretty good.
Catch you up, brother.
Yeah, I mean, I've tried to be pretty granular every morning with the Telegram in terms of like, this is what we're looking at. What we were looking at today happened, and so come up with a plan, execute, right, and then see how
plan the trade the plan.
Yeah,
I like that.
I think the whole patience thing is something that we all need to work on. Maybe not stare at charts, like that's just go do other stuff. Yeah, I think like being bearish here after such a sharp move down with the way liquidity looks is like maybe not as prudent as people think. So
yeah, agreed. Like that. Awesome. With that said, guys, it's been a fun episode. Talked about a bunch of stuff, and we will see you again next week. Captain Cole signing out.
See you later, guys.